I think the thing that defined me the most was when I joined the police force. It really was something that was so not in my comfort zone, and I did it just to prove everybody wrong. To be honest, it's not really I did it for 23 years. I'm not your typical police officer, but I did find my niche in the police. I found a spot that suited my personality type. But that's where I learned all my leadership, my people skills, and my ability to lead. I was a sergeant, and I know people, I read people really well. And over my journey, I've realized I'm very spiritual. I'm very intuitive. I pick up on people's body language. I can see straight through their BS. And it's my superpower. And that's what I realized why I'm such a good leader, because I'm so good with people.
Yes.
And that's my biggest thing. But I learnt that through the police.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations with Jonno White podcast. Today's guest is Michelle Anne Saunderson. Michelle is one half of those two sisters. You'll find out a bit more about what they do in a moment. She is a business coach for women. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you, Jonno, and thank you for having me. I just love being part of podcasts and sharing our joint I love how you do your podcast, conversational. So yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. I love having these chats and seeing where we go, the tangents around leadership. Now, I love what you do, and I love how you articulate it as well. Even just saying before, I was saying, oh yeah, I've just got to get you to explain about yourself, because I think there's some really great phrases in there. So yeah, tell us a bit about yourself and about what you do.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm one half of those two sisters, and I work with my sister, and she is my actual sister. A lot of people ask us. Yes, we have the same mum and the same dad. So her name is Diane McKendrick. We're 3 years apart. I'm the older sister. She's got way more grey hairs than me, which I love to tell people. And that in itself intrigues a lot of people. Like how do you do that? How do you work with your sister? But we've done a lot of self-development, and we just get along. Is that your phone? Love keeping it real. And we just get along. And together we've got our business, those two sisters, in a nutshell, because people are like, exactly what do you do? We do so much that sometimes we struggle to narrow it down. But we understand niches. We've got to we support all women. We just love women. But generally we found that we really love supporting business women, particularly business women out there that are wanting to share their magic with the world, and there's something that's stopping them. So I just said to Jonno before we started, we've coined the term, well, we didn't coin it, but we love it, redefining rich. So it's about showing women there is another way. Yes, it's so important to make money, and we're good at that too. But there's more to that. Like there's fulfillment. We know plenty of millionaires out there that are miserable or unhealthy or just have their terrible relationships, or they come home drinking 3 bottles of wine. Like, to me, it's not worth $1 million if you're miserable. So that's our term, redefining rich. We're on our 5th book at the moment. I haven't told you that, but it's called the Rich Lady Revolution. And we also have a membership academy by that name, because it's a revolution. It's about a movement around there's more to life than money. And I love money. Like, don't get me wrong, definitely need money. But there is more to life than money. So our tagline is to cut the crap, do the thing, and be the woman you're born to be. So basically, let's just get straight to the point of what's getting on, because a lot of people out there with masks and fluffing around and pretending there's something they're not. And allowing women to get I always like to say, getting their business to feel as good as it looks. Because there's a lot of,
I like that.
There's a lot of stuff out there that's looking pretty good, but you pull behind the curtains, not always what's going on. Actually, more often than not, the more years I'm in business, the more I realize as I start to pedestal people, and when I get to know them or start coaching, I'm like, oh, everything is not as it seems. So that's where the cut the crap is. Cut the crap. Like, let's just get to the point. What's holding you back? I hold space like a mofo. I'm the best space holder ever. I'm an ex-police officer. I'll tell you that story in a second. Do the thing. So do the thing, as in like do the thing that scares you, or the thing that's going to push you into the right direction, and be the woman, or whoever, depending on who I'm talking to, the rich lady, whatever it is that you're born to be. Like, we're all here with our genius, our magic. So what's holding you back? Let's just get to the point. And I love just watching women shine. I watch the lights come on. I watch them suddenly be seen on social media, and it all just comes out. And of course, then they start making money, don't they? So,
It's interesting. I don't know if you came across the piece of research. I can't remember where it was from, but it must be, I think it's from the past decade or so, about happiness and income. And I think off the top of my head, what they found was that $75,000 was at that point was the income where if you increased your income from 55,000 to 65,000, you would be dramatically happier
Yeah.
because you can now pay for things, and we all know that if you are earning too small of an amount, say you're a parent, that means your kids are missing out on things, and there's massive impacts on happiness. But they found that after $75,000, it was really only a small, like almost negligible amount that it changed your happiness, whether you went from 75. And I think those numbers today, I like to think, is probably more like 120 or something like that.
I was
But
thinking that too.
there's this point where once you go over that, whether it's 120 to 220 or 320, because you thought going from 60 to 120, you went, wow, that was a massive change to my life. And so 120 to 220, you strive and strive. And then you hit that and you look back and you think, wow, no, I'm earning this much more money. But exactly like you said, if you are sacrificing all these other areas of your life in order to earn that money, then it may even make you less happy growing the wealth that much because other areas are really lacking.
Yeah, I definitely think that is correct. Not always. There's obviously multi-millionaires that are really, really fulfilled and happy. I mean, if we look at Tony Robbins, for example. So it's definitely possible, but I think you have to do the work on yourself. You don't just grow your business to a multi-million-dollar business and think that's going to make you happy, because I can 100% with all my heart promise you that is not going to make you happy. It's the growth, the journey, the self-development that comes with building a multi-million-dollar business that makes you happy.
Agree.
If you just got dumped a multi-million-dollar business on your lap, you'd probably be stressed out of your brain, and you're not. I'm very spiritual, and I just think vibration is a big thing. You're not vibrationally at that point yet. And I think that's why it takes people a lot longer in business than you think. Everyone, like, I've been in business 5 or 6 years now, and I'm only getting to the point where I thought I would have been straight away, because I'm good at what I do. Yeah. And I'm very good at the back end and the tech and all the stuff, but you've got to build up to it. You've got to go through the lessons and the journey and upgrade. We call it upgrade your receiving receptors. You've got to feel comfortable and safe and worthy to receive these big amounts of money. It's a big thing. I remember when we first started, we were doing a little bit of speaking, and I remember the first time we got paid to speak, I was like, oh my God, we just got paid $500. And the other day we got offered a $4,000 speaking gig. I was like, oh yeah, like that's normal,
Yes. Yeah.
It just becomes we love terms, but we call it our new normal. That's our new normal now. Same with our retreats. First one we didn't make any money.
Yeah.
And then oh my God, someone's actually going to pay us to do this, and now we're on our 20th retreat or something. So the journey.
It's new normal as well. Is like, I think it's a bit like having an 8-week-old daughter. It's like, that's a little bit more obvious. One day you didn't have that little girl physically in the world, and then the next day you're at the hospital, and then we take her home, and it's full on, and you then change and adapt. And now, at first it was like, well, less so with our second, but particularly with our first, our little boy Roman. At first it's like, what are we doing? Everyone who's a parent has experienced this. Why are they trusting us to do this? Why haven't we had to go through some kind of accreditation to take this human being home? And then a month later, you're starting to get used to it. And then after a couple of years, it's your new normal. Something that really resonated with me, that I can't remember who said it, but I heard it recently, was, what would, and they used Richard Branson, but you could use really any leader, particularly if you think of a leader you really love and respect, like a Tony Robbins, like you said, let's use Richard Branson because that's what the person said. They said, if Richard Branson swapped you with his life right now, so he had but he stepped into your life and had nothing else except for the resources you have, the networks you have, what would his next 5 years look like? And it's a great question, because guiltily I went, oh, you know what? He would so create something like Virgin out of my resources and my networks. Yep. That's because that's who he is and that's what he does. And I thought that question was really confronting, because otherwise you can blame it on your context, but that made me really face it and go, yeah, he probably would do something extraordinary if he stepped into Jonno's situation and had nothing else, none of his contacts.
Yeah, but we're all here for a purpose too. So we can, again, pedestal and say, Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, and but they're just born into it. Not that they were born into but everyone's got their genius.
Yes.
And it's when you tap into that, like Tony Robbins wasn't always like that. I've done a lot of his work, been over to Florida and in person
Mm.
with him for 6 days, and he's an incredible man, but he wasn't always like that. He built that. He says, I built that mother effing guy. They were poor. Like his mum and
Yeah.
dad had no money. His mother was an alcoholic and used to send him up the shops to get prescription medication for her. And
Mm.
they were poor as anything. They couldn't even afford presents at Christmas. So he built that from absolutely nothing. And so, but it's in him. Like everyone's here for their own journey and their own purpose.
Yeah,
But
100%.
which I love. So it's comparing to each other. The comparativitis can sometimes squash our ability to grow, I feel.
I agree. Well, I think we've just set the record for the longest introduction without even asking you about your story, which is because we're just having too much fun chatting about leadership. And so I want to hear about Michelle and your leadership journey. And so the first question I ask every guest is, as you think back to your childhood or maybe teenager, that stage of life, are there any moments that really stand out to you that shaped you into the person or the leader you are today? Or was a bit of a foreshadowing of like, oh yeah, I can see my passion for that when I was at that age?
Yes, I love that question. And when you first asked me that, I instantly went back to a point when I was in my first year of high school and I was so introverted. I was so shy and I didn't know anyone. And I used to sit on this picnic bench to have our lunch, and there was another girl that sat beside me and I just was too shy to say anything. And my dad would say, oh, how was school today, Shell? And I'd say, oh, yeah, I didn't know anyone. And I sit with this girl and he said, well, what's her name? I said, I don't know. I don't talk to her. And he said, why don't you ask her tomorrow what her name is? And I was like, what? And so I did. That just showed how shy I was. I was terrified. She was as shy as me. And that's a huge change to what I am now. I think the thing that defined me the most was when I joined the police force. It really was something that was so not in my comfort zone. And I did it just to prove
Yes.
everybody wrong. To be honest, it's not really I did it for 23 years. I'm not your typical police officer, but I did find my niche in the police. I found a spot that suited my personality type. But that's where I learned all my leadership, my people skills, and my ability to lead. I was a sergeant, and I know people, I read people really well. And over my journey, I've realized I'm very spiritual. I'm very intuitive. I pick up on people's body language. I can see straight through their BS. And it's my superpower. And that's what I realized why I'm such a good leader, because I'm so good with people.
Yes.
And that's my biggest thing. But I learnt that through the police out of anything.
And so tell me about some of those early days at the police. Are there any pivotal moments where it sounds like you were out of your comfort zone?
Oh.
Any out of my comfort zone moments that come to
Oh,
mind
God.
in particular?
Oh, my God. That first year, I was like 22, I think, when I joined. And I was writing a journal, not journal, but a diary. And I come home and cry every night. It was so not me, like general duty policing.
Yes.
I hated it. It's so not me. So out of alignment. It was ridiculous. And I'd cry every night, but I was like, I'm not giving up. Get through my first year, at least, because you're a first year constable, sort of in probation, to prove everyone that I can do it. Because everyone's like, you're too nice to be a police officer. And you just watch me go. And I hated it. And so, after my first year, I found a different station. I was at Logan Central, Woodridge, for my first year.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know if anyone knows, if your listeners know that, but it's probably one of the roughest places in not Queensland, but Brisbane, definitely. I think I had a bloody murder on my first shift or something. I don't know.
Wow.
It was not me. It wasn't a quiet station. It wasn't a nice nurturing station where they could take me under the arm and teach me. It was just like, here's 20 jobs, go out and do them.
Oh my goodness.
But after that, I just stayed because the next station I felt more at home. And then after that, I dropped into a department that suited. I went into intelligence, which was so up my alley.
Yes.
And then when I found that, I was like, that's my place. Yeah.
How did you get through that year? Crying every night.
Pure determination, Jonno. Oh, it's terrible. I still cringe at the thought of it. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
Pure determination. I'm just not going to quit. Like, I thought I was the shittest police officer in the world, but my mentor at the time he's still in contact with me. He said, "You're one of my favorite trainees," because I could talk to people. So cool. I got into some fights, but I'm not the typical fighter. But I talked my way out of most of it. There's probably one or two where I actually had to get hands on. And usually you're with a male partner can help. So, I got tested once where I got thrown into this massive brawl at Ipswich by myself. and a chick swung and King hit a woman passed out right in front of me, and I thought, shit, I'm going to do something about this. So yeah, I ended up having to capsicum spray her and wrestle her and handcuff all by myself. And I did it. So I always wondered how I'd react under a bit of pressure. I was there like by myself. The crews were coming. They dropped me off and I walked in because I could hear this brawl. And they said the cameras, and they said there's a person on the ground. The ambos are coming. They need a police officer right there. So I said, I'll run through this alleyway. You come around in the car and meet me. So but they hadn't got there, and there was so many fights. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I went in like this, and I did it. And my sister was there. It's 3 a.m. at Ipswich. My sister was there drinking, drunk at the hot dog stand, and apparently she saw the whole thing unfold. I didn't see it. And yeah, and the woman swung at me. I saw back on the footage because there was CCTV. And my sister went home and told my mother that I got King hit. I said, "What are you talking about?" And I watched the footage, and she did. She swung at me. My hair ponytail went back. I don't remember any of this. She was drugged. She didn't come close.
Yeah.
I sprayed her. I cuffed her. It was all good. So it's amazing what you can do under a bit of pressure. Like, you just do it.
That is incredible. What an incredible story. What did you, I guess, from your time at the police, what were your biggest lessons on leadership?
There's a lot of shit leaders in this world. That's terrible. That's my biggest lesson. My biggest lesson was I was an actual true leader, and it showed me how good I am at leading. And it was because there was so many shitty leaders, and most of them are men. And I'm not saying good or bad leaders are men or women, but I don't know, in the police, the majority of men, hopeless. So, and the females that were good leaders were a little bit too harsh.
Okay, yeah, like almost having to earn, was that a culture thing, do you think? Like in order to actually be able to... Yeah, that's... What is it? I mean, in terms of the system, why do you think there was such poor leadership? Because it's one of those things where you think, well, surely, if you walked into a system and you had... I work with a lot of schools as an example, and schools, it's difficult with budgets. They start out as teachers, then they become principals, and there's all these reasons that makes it quite challenging to grow as a leader in a school. And yet there are so many great leaders of schools. So I hear about something like that, and I think I would have thought the environment would have allowed more healthy leaders to grow. What do you think was at the root of that?
I think I don't want to bag them too much because it gave me a 23-year career, and I got so much out. So I'm not here bagging the police, particularly if someone's listening. I think obviously comes from the top down, and I believe that once they get up into the higher realms, that they forget the people at the bottom. It's just all numbers. And I've been in the middle. I was middle management, so I have the constables and the senior constables telling me their problems, and then I reported basically direct to the superintendent because I was his staff officer. So and he was the assistant commissioner. So I had both ends, and there was no middle ground. So I think the middle managers were the most, for me in the police, one of the most important roles in the police, because they got both. Once you've got above about a senior sergeant, all it was numbers, bookkeep, like paperwork. You didn't have nothing to do with the people. And you didn't have time to do with the people, understaffing, all the stuff. But just shit training as well. Yeah, they'll do tick the box training, do this assignment, tick this off, do this computer training, but they didn't have a mentorship. They didn't have true leaders actually taking people and mentoring them. I had a couple that took me under their wing just informally, and I learned a lot from, but there's a lot of terrible ones that... I believe you create your own reality. And I, after 20 years, realized that every job I was in, I had a male leader that was above me, like the one above, who was pretty much useless. And I would do his job and my job. And it was always really busy sections. I always went from, it's like one of the most busiest intel officers with a boss that didn't know what he was doing. So I'd do his job, my job, and be busy. And I did the same. I followed my intel. And as I did my self-development, I slowly pulled away from it. And found a boss that was good. But
wow. But you had to intentionally realize that wait a second, how do I keep ending up in these situations where I'm doing their job for them in a really busy area, which is, I mean, that's just stressing me out hearing it. That must have been
terrible. There was one, God, I hope these people don't listen, but he was useless. He would I would see all this stuff. I would go, have you done this? And he'd just stick his head in the sand. And then when it came, I'm thinking this is going to blow up because it's pretty serious stuff at that level. It's going to blow up. And the day that this is all due, he's off sick all of a sudden. And who gets to have to meet with the bloody deputy commissioner? Me.
Oh, my goodness.
And I could see it coming, but he wouldn't even communicate enough to say, hey, I don't have a handle on this.
Yeah.
Can you help? Or the other thing he would do is just throw his hands and say, it's yours. I'm like, but you haven't given me any training. Like the whole budget for whole of state intel got dumped on my lap 2 days before it was due. Like that's type of problem. I'm like, I've had no training in budget. I was ringing people like you have to spend all this money. I didn't even know what a purchase order was. I was a sergeant who didn't have any training. I went home in tears that day. Just no training. Just learn as you go. And P.S. you got 24 hours to sort it. And then you got to report to the deputy commissioner as to why you're under or over a budget. And not only that, we don't even have a system to tell us where we're at. It's just a literal guessing game. It was terrible. That was many years ago. It might have changed, but just
so what advice would you give to, now that you're all, these years further on, if you could sit down with yourself 20 years ago when you were in one of those busy roles doing the job for your leader, what advice would you give yourself in terms of how to either succeed or do things differently in that role, or stay, leave, whatever? What advice would you give, Michelle?
I think it would be to stand up for myself more and set my boundaries, because the reason I end up doing everything, because I just say yes, because I cared so much. Because if I didn't do it, the people under me would suffer, or someone else would have to do it. Yeah. And a lot of the time I was capable, so I just take it on. So I think if anything, I would say you've got to set your boundaries more, because if you keep doing the job for that person and they're useless, the person above them is never going to know they're useless.
Yeah, true.
Because the job's getting done. They don't care. They just want the job done. That's what happens so many times. But there's also no balls to actually pull people up. Like in corporate, people will, like if someone's underperforming, they get managed. In the QPS, they don't. I've been directly to bosses and said, this person is absolutely useless, and they'll just put their head in the sand and, we'll sort that. Nothing ever gets done. Nothing gets changed. And everyone just knows that person's useless and carries on because the job's getting done.
Yeah.
So
I
would say
heard similar in other similar industries, and where people get shuffled, sent to another team.
Yes. Or promoted generally.
Or promoted. That's right.
That was a big thing. They would literally promote these people, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Just to move them on. Like, we don't want them, so let's promote them and send them over there.
So what you talked about standing up for yourself, having clearer boundaries. What have you learned about how to do that you maybe didn't know 20 years ago?
I'm still in the thick of it, because I still lean towards the people pleasing. But for me, it's probably the communication early on, to have those conversations early on with either the person, or if they're incapable of understanding, which some of them, no matter what you say to them, are not going to, is to go to the person above or above them to say, hey, this is not working, and communicate your needs. Sort of like your book. I haven't got all the way through, but I loved it, about the hard conversations. And the earlier and the more direct you are, the better. And same when you're leading from, like, I would have problem children under me, and again, I'd let it go way too long before I did the official address. Yes. I'd try everything in my power to do everything, and it would just blow up even worse, which is what you said in your book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
it's one of those things where it's so easy, because it's easy to talk about it, but in the moment when you're dealing with that, it's not the only thing you're dealing with as well.
No.
So it's one plate you're spinning.
Yes.
And so it's easy to look at it and go, I just can't have that conversation with my boss. I'm a week into this new boss. I can see the writing on the wall that there's some red flags here, but I just can't, because I've also got all these things that are weighing on me. And unfortunately, from learned experience myself, it's, if you don't deal with it early, then by the time you're ready to deal with it, or you decide it's worth dealing with, it's become this massive, it's like an avalanche, It's like a tiny snowball that builds into this massive thing that just crushes you and everyone around you. And you try to deal with it.
Yes. And you're sitting there praying, particularly as you're dealing with people. So many times I've seen these people, I'm just like, can't you just get along? Like, this is such mine. I've had one, she didn't say good morning to me this morning. And I'm like, are you joking me? Like, I've got a million things and I'm dealing with the
Yes.
fact that someone looked at you sideways or someone didn't say good morning. I'm like praying to God, please, universe, just let them get along. Please get along. I don't want to deal with this today. Like, honestly.
Especially when on the other side of your desk, if you're in the police, might be some legitimate, horrific thing that you're trying to, and then you've got didn't say good morning. You're like, oh,
yeah.
One of these is more important than. I think there'd be a lot of listeners nodding along. You know, we've all had those things where you're mediating, and you're just looking at two people thinking, why am I here? Like, well, what is this? Why is you're both taking something so small, so personally, and this is the worst.
Can't we just do our job?
Oh, so good. So you spent all that time in the police, and then what was tell us a little bit about how you transitioned from that into what you're doing now. I know there's probably 10 podcasts worth of stories in there, but give us a bit of a snapshot of how you ended up doing what you're doing now, coming from your 23-year career in the police.
I'll give you a snapshot, very in one line. I didn't get the jab, so I got the sack. So basically, I didn't get the vaccination. I've had all my vaxxers up to that. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I didn't get my COVID one. And so I got terminated, and that forced me out. And I was already I was part-time, so I was already half in, half out. Yeah. And that was just the extra push out the door. So, yeah, that was an interesting one. Still fighting that, but because I so don't agree with how it was dealt with or the decision. But obviously I've made the most of it because that's the sort of person I am. And,
So what was that next? What was that like in that time? You've been somewhere for 23 years. Was there much of a landing, like a time of where you could transition out, or was it a bit of an overnight?
It was an overnight.
It was an overnight thing.
Pretty much. The date came October, and that day they rang me because I was not actually on that day, and they're like, we're directing you not to attend a police station. Oh, unless you need to report a break-in or something, but you're not to, like, I felt like a criminal, and you are on pay for a month.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And then you had to put paperwork in and then no pay. So I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and Christmas Eve was my last pay, the 24th of December. And I was like,
my goodness.
Whoa, 2021, I think it was. Like, that is scary stuff, you know. But a mortgage, I have a car that was salary sacrificed, which was 30 grand or something that I couldn't obviously keep salary sacrificing because I was technically unemployed by that stage.
Wow.
So it was a harrowing 3 years, really was. Like, still can't believe I did it, but yeah, I made it work. I did have good support from my parents, which was really helpful. And Dad every now and would just drop in and say, like, Dad ended up helping me with the car because I didn't have that much extra cash cushion to pay it out. And he just said, please, I'm your father, just let me do this one thing for you. So it's one less thing you need to stress. But
that's so sweet.
You made it happen. I lost a lot of sleep.
Yeah. How did you get through those 3 years?
Thank goodness that I love my business that I was in with my sister, and it forced us to make that work. And a lot of self-development, a lot of my own personal development, and a lot of support from family and friends, really. The kids, the kids suffered because I was so stressed that, what happens? You get upset and cranky, and you're under the pump, you're trying to be a mother. My eldest was starting to get to that playing up stage where she was pushing back on everything. Yeah. We ended up having a massive blow up and ended up at the psychologist, which is the best thing that ever happened. And she's come out of that really good because I got help, asked for help.
Yes.
So it was very, very full on for many years. Yeah. So I wake up in the middle of the night thinking, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills tomorrow, but it always works. It always works. I don't know how. It always works. I'd think there's not enough money to pay a bill in the business, and then we'd get a $5,000 sale the next day. It just happens.
And I think, like you said, when you've seen behind the curtain and when you coach leaders or small business owners, and things can look so shiny, but I just know for myself and for all of our listeners, people will be really appreciating your vulnerability and how you are cutting the crap, like you talk about, because it's yeah, it's just such a special gift for you to share so vulnerably about that time in your story. Because it's easy to see what you're doing and the amazing retreats you're running and to think, oh, yep,
Looks
must have
easy.
been easy, you know,
Mm-mm.
and actually, um, yeah, hearing your story of whether it's crying at night in that first year at the police to what you went through in those 3 years, after COVID. What have been the biggest learnings? Stepping out, coming from the police and running your own business with your sister. What have been your biggest learnings about running a business in those 3 years? What do you wish you knew on Christmas Eve when you got that last payslip that you know now?
I think what I wish I knew was that, well, one, that you're always supported, particularly when you're doing something that's in alignment. I'm a bit spiritual, in alignment with your soul. So if you're doing
Yeah.
something that's in alignment that you're meant to be doing, it always works out. It may not be how you look. It may not look like what you think it's going to be looking like, but it always works out. And the other
Yes.
part I've learned over my journey, which is my biggest learning, is uh, being more in my feminine really, really helps the everything, because it's again an alignment piece. If I'm being my masculine, with being a single mum was had to be,
Sure.
and pushing and striving and coming from that place, is very different to when I started doing some feminine embodiment work, and it changed everything. It softened me. It allowed me to bring my emotions to the surface, and then I become a different business owner, and
Yeah.
then I could teach that to other women. It's really powerful stuff. I did my movement this morning, and I think every woman needs to know this, particularly every businesswoman.
So if there's a businesswoman listening going, what do I write down? How do I, where would they start in terms of exploring that? Are there any particular resources or authors or around that is a good place to start?
There's an author called Michelle Saunderson. No, sorry. I only say it and I'm laughing because in the chapter, I've wrote a chapter in my sister's, it was her third book, one of the books, and
Yeah.
it's called GSD and the Arnie Flow Club. So GSD is the Get Shit Done Club,
Yeah.
and moving from there to Arnie Flow, which is your intuition, your femininity. And I tell my story in that, how I went from a police officer to where I am now, all the
Yeah.
back end of all the stuff and what I learned and my journey. And that's all in that chapter. So I do have a free link to get a free chapter audio version. If you want that, I can give that to you for your
Yeah.
listeners.
Let's put that in the show notes.
Yep.
I'd love that. And
I
what's the
cry every
book?
time
What's
I
the full
listen.
book so that
It
people
is
can buy
called
it?
The Align. Oh my God, I freaking remember. The Aligned Woman's Way. I've written so many, I keep getting confused. The Aligned Woman's Way, it's called.
The Aligned Woman's
Woman's
Way.
Way, Volume 1,
Okay.
because we just did a Volume 2.
Love
But
it.
Volume 1
Okay.
is that chapter. And then I actually got to go down to Melbourne and speak in front of 500 people on that.
Yeah.
Did a 10-minute keynote. And yeah, everyone stood up and cheered. And then I remembered I was in Melbourne, of course. Everyone loved the fact that I didn't get vaccinated.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I never had that type of reaction. Like, there was screaming and people at the back yahooing and standing up. And I'm thinking, oh. And then it dawned on me, oh shit, I forgot I'm standing here on a
That's
stage
right.
in Melbourne. Of course I'm going to get that
Yes.
reaction. But I got that recorded, and I was again terrified to do that speech, because I've done a lot of speaking with my sister. It's off the
Yes.
cuff. We have a
Yeah.
PowerPoint. We're coaching on this was different. This was me by myself. It was a keynote. So you had 10
Yeah.
minutes to make a very big impact. It was in front of my speaking coach and a lot of event organizers.
Wow.
And there was no PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Well, in the end, she said you could have a PowerPoint, but it was just photos. So I had memorized my speech down to the last degree, timing it with the photos, all the things that was quite impactful. And then they lost my PowerPoint. So I'm standing there in front of 500 people with no PowerPoint, and I was physically shaking before I walked on that stage. And I'm pretty confident in front of people.
Yeah.
I was literally about to be sick. And I got up there and I nailed it. I don't know, it came from somewhere. I'd done a lot of preparation.
Yes.
And when I watched the video back of myself, I was like, wow, like that's you. That's you. Like that is you. So
I love that.
we have that link. I'll get you that link as well if I can find it. Because people can
please
get the
do.
speech.
Yeah.
It's not
Yes,
the
we'll put that in the
professional
show notes.
footage, but it's from someone from the audience recorded it. And
Love it.
yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
So good. So what are you, I guess, what are you seeing as the biggest challenges that the women that you're coaching who are coming to your retreats, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges they're experiencing in 2025?
is probably the point I said before is they're all overachievers.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of like ADHD, like a lot of really good, amazing entrepreneurs are actually diagnosed ADHD. So they have
Mm.
this amazing drive, but they have this
Yep.
chaos going on in their head. So the two biggest
Yeah.
things I would say people like, from what I can see, are a lack of structure in the back end. If they're really like really big entrepreneurs with that sort of chaotic mind, you have these massive big visions, but they don't have the implementer. So
Yes.
that's a big one. And I'm lucky because Di's the visionary and I'm the implementer, but I
Sure.
also have the spiritual side. So that works well for us. So there's no
Mm-hmm.
that one. And the other piece is just the constant go and not stopping, not in the masculine completely, and
Okay.
burning out because of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So they're the
So they
two.
need to read. They need to read your book about the aligned woman's way.
Yeah. And about
Yes.
letting Auntie Flo visit. I called her
Yeah.
crazy Auntie Flo, the loopy one that you met as a child and then she disappeared from your life and everyone called her crazy and a bit woo woo. And then she's back and it's about letting her
Yeah.
into your life and I got goosebumps. And
Mm.
yeah, letting Auntie Flo guide you for a little bit instead of and I had it was really very clever on my behalf, club rules. So the
Yeah.
GSD club rules, and then when you moved
Yes.
into Auntie Flo club rules, and what the two different club rules were, and how you could move from one to the other,
Yes.
including giving yourself space and like moving and meditating and listening to your intuition versus we call it whisper and wounding in the book. Like your whisper
Mm.
is that thing that you're listening to your intuition, and the wounding is your head saying, no, work harder, strive, push, push, push. So yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
And for those listening who might be experiencing that, they're a high capacity leader, they're a high capacity person, and they have big visions, but there's also chaos in their head, and maybe chaos in the back end.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them? Where is the best place to start, or if they could only do one thing, or you could give them one piece of advice, what would you say?
Oh, there is so much, but probably the biggest piece, chaos in the back end, that makes me laugh. The biggest piece I would say is find a like-minded community of
Mm.
people that get you, that know, and you can be vulnerable with. Because
Yeah.
a lot of these women can't actually say, because there's a lot of shame involved. If you've got a 12, 15, $20 million company and you're
Mm.
losing your shit at home every night and drinking two
Mm.
bottles of wine and your finances are an absolute mess and you don't have money to pay the bills because you don't know where all your money's going, that's a massive shame thing to bring up.
Sure.
So allowing the community to find your community that allows you to take the masks off, cut the crap. Let's just all be
Mm.
honest here. We've all got our thing. And then to support you moving into the next stage of your life, which is the
Mm.
softening and the vulnerability piece is a big one that most very successful entrepreneurs are missing because they always got the I'm okay face. Yeah.
That's right.
The last retreat we ran, we called Top Shelf, and it was million dollar entrepreneurs. They asked us to do it. They said, "Can you run it?" And they said, "We just want to be nobodies. We want to come in and not have to have the face and
Mm.
the I'm okay." And so it was such a
Yes.
powerful retreat. They have asked for another one. So just because they got each other, they're all successful entrepreneurs. They know what each other's
Yeah.
about. And that's what I mean, the community and the support. And let's all
Mm.
say we're not okay in generally one area of our life. There's something usually that's
Mm.
blocked in some respect.
Yeah, I love that. I really do think the future is, if there's one thing I'm seeing chatting with leaders across the world, it's the need for face-to-face vulnerability with like-minded
Mm-hmm.
people. It's just, I think it's always been important. And I think that just for so many reasons, it's become less and less. I think, it's just harder to find that type of community organically, maybe. I know
Yeah.
And so I do think that doing the kind of retreats you're doing is just going to get even more important and more
Yeah.
successful in the next 10 or 20 years, because we're so desperate for it. Somewhere that we understand each other, but so there's like enough in common, but there's a safety to
Yeah.
take off the mask and actually say, I'm not doing okay in these two areas of my life, and
Yeah.
feel supported for that, is just gold.
Yeah.
It's a real life changer for people, I think.
Yeah. And not judged. And that's exactly out of when we ask for testimonials because we struggle with our messaging, trying to get what we do across, because it is an actual feeling. And we'd say to our top clients, like, what have we given you that's tangible that we can put on a sales page? And they go, oh my God, like I was lonely and I found this amazing community. I'm like, it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell. Like, help me. Like, my sales page does not like that. Like, we need something that's like, we will boost your income by 20,000 a month. We'll make you feel good and we'll sort your shit out. Like, how do you sell that? If you come any ideas, Jonno, you just let me know.
No, I actually am working on, there's a few ideas that I haven't been able to implement yet about bringing leaders together face to face in different parts of the world, CEOs and different things that I will end up doing, but just haven't done yet. And I am convinced more and more that it's often the content. So for me, I'm thinking what I've learned is if you can have a particular speaker or someone who everyone hooks to that and goes, oh yes, I'll go along because I like them. But that's not the real life-changing thing at the experience. What happens there in terms of the way they feel and how they interact with everyone, the relationships they develop, that's the gold. But it's very hard to sell that. It's funny. I remember an author one time who wrote all these books, did one about love, and they commented that it was the least sold book because there was something in the way they presented that people didn't seem to care about, and yet they thought it was the most important thing. It's a bit like that with these retreats. It's like you kind of have to market it on something that is part of it, but the real gold is what they experience.
You've got to sell to the ego. It's what we've realized, and it just rubs me up the wrong way every time. You've got to sell to the ego and give to the soul, because people buy, like, anything that involves selling some sort of sexuality or sensuality will sell really well. Anything that tells people they're going to make money or get famous, off the shelves. I want to tell you that you're going to get through your fears, open up and spew all your vulnerabilities to me and find a like-minded, amazing community, and don't sell. And this is why we term the coin rich lady, because it has a connotation of ego. And it's a bit different. People, but we know it's not rich. It's not just money, but it still talks to people's egos to a point. Like, oh yeah, I want to be a rich lady. I want to be part of that community.
Yes.
So that's sort of why we went down that track, because we're trying to think of something that could talk to the egos a bit more.
Yeah. No, I see that. Well, let's, I'm just looking at the clock. Let's jump into Leadership Express. My last questions for you. The idea of these is I'm just going to ask you a few questions and really just the first thing off the top of your head. So the first question, what book have you gifted the most to others? Or if you're not a book giver, what book do you recommend the most, do you think?
I love Oprah Winfrey. So a lot of her books I will often tell people about. That would probably be the biggest one for me.
What's your favorite Oprah book?
Oh, I've got one. I can't remember what it's. Oh, it's over there. I can't remember the name of it, but it's just a random group of messages from famous people that she's had the Super Soul Sunday conversations with. And I just love it. I just go to it and I randomly go to a page and there's just a message there for me. So I can't remember the name of it though. Sitting over
That's
there.
all right. No, all good. What is a recent leadership or business lesson you've learned for the first time or been reminded of?
Probably for me is I'm doing sales coaching at the moment, so that people need a tangible outcome and a hook to get them even to look at your stuff. It has to be like, what are these people going to get? It's not about what it's included. It's at what result are they going to get? When people say don't sell, people don't want to buy the quarter. An American guy told me this. You don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill. They need a 1/4 inch. They want to know they will buy the 1/4 inch hole. So it's the 1/4 inch hole. However they say it. That's what people want. They want the 1/4 inch hole. No point trying to tell them the drill. You sell them the hole.
What's a great piece of advice you've received in your life?
The biggest piece I would say was from one of my coaches was, when you're nervous, to focus on service. So, because when you're nervous, it's about yourself. It means you're worried about what people think about you, how you're going to perform, what am I going to look like? So flipping that and making it about service and going, what can I give to these people? And then that like neutralizes all your nerves.
Oh, I like that. That's awesome. Great advice. What is a big struggle or problem that you see leaders facing more generally today?
I think it's the being in the doing constantly and the overachievingness of particularly women in business, constantly having to be in overachievement and always looking for the next thing to achieve.
Yeah. Love it. That's awesome. What about a movie or TV show that really impacted you? Can be profound, but can be just nostalgic.
Nostalgic, bloody Dirty Dancing, of course. I love Dirty Dancing. I can't. I just watch it over and over.
Is that the one you can't put baby? Nobody
In the
puts baby in the
corner.
corner. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know what I mean. Everyone loves that movie, but there's something about that movie that I don't
yeah.
know. It's something about it. Maybe it links now to all my feminine movement I'm doing. Maybe I didn't know back in the time that I was craving. I was
Yeah,
craving
yeah.
like I just did a course on the weekend called Full Spectrum Woman, and it's
Yes.
about just letting go and letting your music. And I've just started doing all this feminine training, and that's what it's letting the music lead your body rather than your
Very
head.
cool. Yes, yeah.
That's why it's Dirty Dancing. There you go.
I love that. Yeah.
Not business
I love
related. Well, it is. Yeah.
What about any favorite quotes? Are there any quotes that you particularly love about life or leadership or business?
It's actually my sister's quote, and it's written right here on my mouse pad, and it's called, "It's not about the how, it's about the now." So just get it started. Don't worry about how you're going to do the thing. Just do something
Yeah.
to move towards your goal.
It's not about the how, it's about the now. I like that. What can you do right now? And if you could only give one piece of leadership advice to a young leader, what would you say?
Ooh, I would say trust in yourself and trust in the bigger picture. There's something that's always bigger at play. So just trust and put one foot in front of the other, and you're just always going to be guided to the next step.
Love it. Well, for people who have really enjoyed listening, where can people find you online?
So our website's probably the one-stop shop at the moment. It's getting an overhaul. It's not the best at the moment. That's okay. It looks pretty. Don't know if it's very functional, but it's those2sisters.com. See, I like to be real and raw. So those and the number 2sisters.com. And on there, you'll find all of our events that are coming up. The merchandise has all the books and all the things we spoke about. And the retreats on there, and all the things.
Are your retreats all in Australia at the moment?
At the moment, they are. We've just started looking at maybe doing an overseas one.
Okay.
We were looking at Hawaii, but it just was a little bit bloody. They're just so expensive. For what you get,
it harder.
The US dollar. People will pay it, but they're not getting what I think they should get for that amount of money. So we've pulled on that one. Yeah, and we might do like Thailand or even the Philippines because I think they'll be nice. LOBAs are over there, so something like that. But we do them up north. We've done a few up in Cairns. We go down to Byron Bay and the just northern rivers out west of Ipswich sometimes. Mostly local, mostly Queensland or northern New South Wales.
Well, for our listeners who are, particularly if you're a high capacity businesswoman who just really resonating with you, then there's always the opportunity to reach out about coming to Australia, which I know that for many of our international listeners is a bit of a bucket list item. So it might be a good way to reach out to Michelle and come down.
That's
here
funny. Actually, we just actually had 2 Americans fly over for our retreat, and where we hold the retreats, it's just they love because there's literally kangaroos jumping through everywhere through the yard. There's like all the local wildlife. It's stunning. And we had 2 that we met at Tony Robbins, and they flew over just for our retreat and flew back. Wow, it was incredible.
So
and then and then she signed up for the high-end package, and now she's coming back again for our business retreat in June. So definitely, if there's Americans particularly listening and you want a nice trip and meet some Aussies and pat the kangaroos, come over.
That's right. We are much loved. The Aussies, the kangaroos, the koalas. There's a lot of love for Aussies everywhere around the world. Yes. Well, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Such a fun episode, and just the stories that Michelle has shared from her life and her time in the police. Oh man, just gold. I've just had so much fun chatting. But most of all, I want to thank you, Michelle. Thank you for being so real and for walking you didn't just talk the talk, you really walked it out. And I really appreciate you sharing about your life. And I know that, today what you shared will be really helpful for someone who really needed to hear something you said today because they're going through something similar that you've been through before, etc. So I really believe that. And just really want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.